The arm should not look like that. It's pretty consistent. Is how even starter is smoking. Man, I am really leaning toward this being a fuel supply issue. Pump is free. Come on. There we go. All right. All right. Come on now. All right, I'm back on this solenoid here, and we're going to start by testing this shutoff solenoid, this fuel solenoid here. Make sure it actually operates like it should before we go tearing into this pump, because if it's bad and it's our problem, I'd rather fix that than tear this apart. So we're going to take, got this battery charger that will actually give me 12 volts without having electronics. So we'll take one side of it, we'll ground it to the pump, and I'm just going to clip this little adapter thing here on this so I can touch. The solenoid here is literally just a one wire, so there's only one prong, and that's going to be your 12 volts. It's going to get the other side of the circuit through the ground, because it'll literally ground it to the machine itself. So we'll turn this on, and we should hear a click if it's working right. Not that click. That click. So that solenoid is moving, or at least we hear what we hear. I'm going to go ahead and just say that it's good. And that's not just based on the fact that I hear that click. It's based on the fact that this thing never had a problem where it absolutely wouldn't start due to fuel. It was getting fuel. It just was getting either too much or not enough or not at the right time. I don't exactly know yet. But I definitely think the problem is in the fuel injection pump. This is a Denso style pump, which is technically like a Bosch VE pump. And I only know that because the guys at Area Diesel Service reached out to me a while back when I was working on the wheel loader, and they said, hey, if you ever need help, give us a call. So I called them, and I basically told them what I had, and I said, here's what's going on. They pretty much told me they think that the timing advance is either stuck in there or something's going on inside. So I'm going to risk it and kind of tear into it a little bit. So this pump is one that I'm definitely not as familiar with as some of the others I've worked on. But I have yet to ruin one. If I absolutely need help, I'll get a hold of those guys at Area Diesel Service, but they were absolutely awesome. I truly appreciate their help, and who knows, I'll probably still need their help. All right, one of the first things we have to do is scribe a line on this throttle linkage so that we can clock it in the right position. And there's technically kind of like a little T on the top of that stud there. So I did a small line there on this piece and another line this way on this piece. So we should be safe to remove this nut, at which time we'll get a couple springs off, and that'll allow us access to the fourth mounting bolt. There's 1, 2, 3, and then there's one under here. I don't think I'm going to have to mess with the idle or the high RPM adjustments at all. I don't really want to mess with those, but if we have to, we'll get into them. There are some special nuts and bolts on this. So like there's that triangle one, there's that half slotted, it's got like a flat here and a flat there on that piece. So, and then on the very end, this piece here is kind of like flat, 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 kind of like a triangle with rounded corners. I don't have the special tools, so we'll see if we can make do with what I do have. See what we got here for springs. I think there's 2 of them from what I see. This piece, the rounded section faces toward where the injector lines go. There is an inner spring, which is this one, and they literally are almost, they go together. They're almost wound up together. They both go on that throttle linkage, and they literally had like a single turn all the way around to tighten them. So I'm just going to stick that all as an assembly. Alright, that's the one I couldn't get to. These other ones I'd already loosened. At least I thought I did. Okay. I would assume this just screws into the cap, but no sense in... Yeah, that's fine. That does just screw into the cap. I'm going to leave that alone. Got to back this fuel load screw out. Let's take this cover off. I think I'm supposed to push this out, but I don't have a seal kit for it, so I'm going to try and do it while leaving it in there. And there's a spring attached to it. That's the shaft we're trying to take out, or they're leaving there. This one. And I don't have a replacement at the moment. Well, it's definitely dirty in here. I mean, noticeably. And injection pumps are not designed to be dirty. So, this is the spring. I'll leave that on there for now because it's holding that piece. I think next we take this nut off. And that should allow us to get these weights out, I believe. Alright, let's remove this nut. That doesn't seem right. Because it's reverse threads. Now that makes sense. Alright, so we've got this little spring here, which attaches to the shaft that's on the governor cover that we took off. I'm going to pull that spring off. It's got this little tiny spring and like this little plunger thing. So I'm going to hook that back together. We're going to put that in the parts tray like so. And I want to try and get this whole governor assembly out in one unit. This thing should unscrew and pull out like so. And now, governor and the weight basket, which is this. Right behind that weight basket, there's a washer and a half moon spacer with, it's got this like half moon. Not that it probably matters, but I went to the trouble of marking the injector lines with colored zip ties, so let's label these. These, on this piece it's labeled, so you got A, B, C, and D. So we'll just go A, B, C, D. And so A is blue, B is yellow, C is, let's see, orange, and D is pink. So now at least know which ones go where. We're going to take these four out. All right, so inside these, there is a spring. And then this little plunger thing, and then this cap. I'll try and keep those together. All right, now I need to take this off. This is a, I don't know, distributor cap, I think was what it was called. And it's like a 3 flat unit deal. I don't have that socket, so I'm going to see what I can figure out. I have half a mind to use a pipe wrench, but I hate doing that on stuff like this. But they don't make it so that the average guy can work on something like this without special tools and knowledge, and I'm just an average guy. I don't have the money to spend and pay somebody to do everything for me. So I try and figure things out. Might be a cover or a crush washer. It's kind of what it looks like. This is probably a terrible idea, but it's what I got. All right, I don't like this, but I'm hoping it doesn't take a lot. I think we're already loose. We loose? No. There it goes. Do not like using the wrong tool, but sometimes you just got to do with what you've got. That is the distributor head plug. So there is an O-ring here. Hoping I can match up a new one for this. But now we're going to remove this shut-off solenoid. Here's the rubber cover here. And the single wire. There's our wire. Put this back on so we don't lose it. You need an open-ended wrench for that. And I don't have any of my big metric ones, or maybe I do. Hang on. Would you believe in all that? That a 15/16 works on this. Kind of surprising. So this is our fuel shutoff solenoid that we tested earlier. And now we could technically test it again. Kind of looks maybe broken. So I would assume these are supposed to be together. Not that it matters, I guess. So when you put power to this, it should go chunk. It should go like this. Chunk, suck back in, and allow fuel to then flow through the injection pump. So we'll test it again on the bench, but it was just sitting in there. This piece was out of it. There's a spring in there too. Alright. Now we gotta be really careful. I believe there are plungers in here. Let's see if I can put all this back. Okay, where do you go? What do you do? You don't go there. And you don't go there. I think you go here. And I actually think these springs ride on top of these. These two holes right there. Or no, those springs don't go there. Those springs go here. And here. And then these plungers, 1 and 2, go in that hole and that hole. And this shaft goes in the center hole. Alright, now we're going to get the plungers, which is this. There's a spring, a seat, a spacer, and the plunger rod. There's 2 of them. Grab those together. Alright, now we take out this center plunger here. This thing is massively dirty. So, looks like there's a thing. Another thing. A washer, spacer, another little spacer. I'm going to leave all that together. So right down in there, there's another little spacer that you don't want to miss. Alright, now I'm going to take this die grinder and we're going to grind out a little notch. Alright, now I wish I wouldn't have cut the wrench. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another one. I'm not going to cut it, and we're just going to notch it like that because it fits. It's just not working because it's sprung open. Alright, here's our tool. Basically, I took a 12 mil, ground 3 points. Let's see if it works. There, that got that one. Now, let's see if we can get this one. Pay attention to that blue line right there. Let's see if we can make this thing work. There we go. See that line moving? Success. See how they're triangular like that? Not meant to be gotten into by me. Alright, now this one should be the same as that. And then this governor mechanism will slide out towards me. Like so. So basically these just screw in and retain that right there like that. And right there like that. Alright, next up we're going to remove this cam plate, which is this here. And as you can see, it's basically wavy, because as it spins, it's like a rotary cam. Pushes in on these rollers in here. There's also a cam spring, which is that. And we're going to leave that whole mechanism with all those rollers in it just as it is for now. Alright, now this is the part that's suspect here. In here is basically a timing piston, something to that degree, and it is what can get stuck and basically throw the timing off, even though I never messed with the timing in any way, shape, or form. And to even get in this far, you have to take it apart this far. So, let's see how it looks in here. One of these should be spring-loaded. I feel like it's that one. That one does not feel spring-loaded. Nope, there's a spring. Maybe they're both spring-loaded. So that's your cover, one of them. There's your other cover. There's your spring. And there's an O-ring. And I believe... Okay, I see how that works. So as that moves side to side, down in here, these rollers are... The whole roller cage is twisting. So this is essentially your timing... your timing advance. I'll get a shot for you. So as I move this piston back and forth, you can see the whole ring in there adjusting. And actually, it feels like it slightly wants to bind. Right there, it's binding. It's been fine, 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 and then... Yeah, right there, it's hitting something. And that'd be all it would take. I guess let's dive in a little deeper and see what we find. Alright, now right down in here, there's a little retaining clip that covers a pin. So if I pull this off, There's our retaining clip. And then right here, there is a pin. Come on now. There. Little pin. And this one should slide out. Like so. So now we need to get that pin out. Slides to the middle. All right, now we can lift this whole basket out. There we go. And it has our rollers in it. It's got this like chopped off section that goes right in this area. All right, now I got this little timer piston. That is what slides back and forth. Now I'm not seeing any major issues. A little bit of buildup here on that side of it, but it's definitely dirty. It looks fairly clean though, in regards to no damage. We'll clean out the bore in there real gently, but get that out and get that cleaned. So that essentially faces the side that has this little tit in there. That faces on the side with the label. And then this little piston, this sub piston here, that's what our retaining pin in the middle of that weight basket slides into. And so you can't even work on getting this piston out until you get that whole roller bearing cage out. All right, now we should be able to get this drive shaft out. I'm gonna get the key off the shaft. So there's our Woodruff key. And this should slide out. There's our drive shaft. It's got another key in there. That one's interesting. It's not a normal Woodruff key. Right down there is essentially the vane pump that is the fuel pump for this injection pump. So there's a Phillips head here, and that plate should come off. Okay, well that's easy enough. These are just the vanes that fit. I wish I knew, but they go like that. So as this spins, these little vanes kick out and contact the outer surface of this, and then it lets fuel in, and fuel then gets pushed out to each of the injector lines, or further into the pump, I guess, because there's not 4 holes here. So it spins around like no. So then this is the plate we see from the top. Yeah, it only has 1 hole. That must be like fuel in, maybe, because these 2 holes are for mounting it. Easy enough. Alright, last thing I'm going to remove is this regulating valve right here. It's, again, another special socket, but a 10 mil fits that across that way. So we're going to give it a shot doing this. There we go. Couple O-rings on that shaft, and there's like this metal cage on the bottom. Not sure what that's for, but I am not going to mess with it. I wasn't planning on having to go this deep to figure out the fuel issue, so... But, here we are. I have been more confident about fixing injection pumps. This one I'm kind of on the fence because nothing is really screaming stuck. It all seemed to move, everything came out, nothing was bound massively. It is dirty in here, which... You know, that really could be it, but we'll get it cleaned out, get all these parts detailed. I've got everything cleaned all up. All the parts are laid out. All of the other parts here. Everything's ready to be put back together. But hard part is what did I figure out as far as the issue? This is the timer piston, and then you have a timer sub piston and a timer slide pin. These fit right down in this bore here. So this piston here should just drop straight in and fall right through. And it doesn't. It takes a little effort and it gets tighter. So what I can see is right there. There's a little bit of corrosion and a spot where it might be binding. And then on this side, right there, there's a little corrosion and a spot that it might be binding. And so I talked to the guys over at Area Diesel Service, and they basically told me that if that thing gets bound up, it will not, the engine won't be timed right. So the plan... This aluminum is harder than the aluminum in the case here. We're going to try and just lightly sand with some Scotch-Brite, or I've got some 220 grit sandpaper here. Just those spots where it might be a little bit tight. And we're going to see if we can hopefully get it moving freely. And then we'll finish with the rebuild. Now, one of the big mysteries of this situation here is that this machine was running so well. Now, I guess maybe some dirt could get in there, or maybe this was already kind of starting to have an issue. I don't know. But it ran so great, and then all of a sudden it stopped running great and started being hard to start, started smoking. I can still feel something with my finger right there. We're going to try a little bit of sandpaper right here on this spot. That's feeling better. I'm going to blow that out. We're going to put some lube in there and see if it moves any better. Alright, let's see how well this fits now. go. So now that's moving freely. I hear a little bit more. I might try and sand this piston a little bit. Just on the edge. Much better. I'll bet you that was our whole problem right there. All that work to just get that out and clean it up. Now, I did get a kit. Guys from Area Diesel Service were able to send me a kit. So this should be all of our O-rings, crush washers, oil seals, etc. I did need a 17 mil oil seal for the face. I don't really need it, but I'm in this deep, I might as well replace it. And since I have one, let's do it. This is the oil seal. There we go. We're committed now. Because every time you do that, you kind of nick these seals up and they're just not usable again. Let's put this thing back together. Here's our rebuild kit. I got this from the guys at Area Diesel Service. They had it in stock, ready to rock and roll, which is awesome. I remove these two O-rings and replace them. This is the regulating valve. A little bit of light oil. Throw that big one on there first. You know, the one thing I will tell you about me is that I'm not trained in any of this. And I only tell you that to give you some confidence that maybe you could take one of these apart. Because they're a lot less complicated than you might want to believe. Not that they're not complicated. There's tons of little parts and you got to be very meticulous and not drop stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you absolutely mess it up, you can always call the guys at Area Diesel Service and send it to them. So this regulating valve goes right down in this hole here. So this pump is very similar, if not almost identical, to a Bosch VE pump. And so, I've never worked on one until this one. I had questions, so I called the guys at Area Diesel Service and they helped me out, kind of talked me through some ideas. Torqued. Perfect. This literally goes in like this. Slides all the way up. Probably can't see it. There we go. All right. These veins go in here. And then there are 2 screw holes. One right there, and one right there. And that's where this and this go. Next up, we're going to get this drive shaft ready. So it's got 2 Woodruff keys, little one here, or the bigger one there for the actual cam gear on the engine. And then this one, I believe, keys to the pump in there. And in it, and I didn't replace these, are 2 rubber bushings. And I wasn't gonna replace them because I didn't have new ones. But now I do. There's one there, and one there. There are these little rubber blocks. So since I've got new ones, we're putting them in. And the governor gear, I believe. Beautiful. Now our drive shaft is installed. It's nice and tight, but yet still moves freely. So now we reinstall the timer piston, which might have been the issue we had. Got the sub pistons already in it. So the hollow side faces, you got the drive shaft facing that way. The hollow side faces us. So let's get some oil in there. Beautiful. Just moves freely now. That's what we wanted. That literally might have been the whole issue with this pump. So now I've got to install the roller, ring, and assembly. So it basically, this is the pin right here that engages with the timer piston. So push this in all the way, and then we'll drop this whole thing in. With the rollers and washers all in one assembly. Just like so. See, they're all in there. And then that pin will slide down, if I can get it lined up, into the sub piston assembly. There we go. So now, if you look down in there, there's a little tiny hole right there. And this little pin here, right there, drops in and is retained by that little clip. Alright, next up we're going to install this drive shaft coupler, which goes right down in there. You want the cup section facing this way because there's a spring that goes down in there. And then this is the cam plate. It has the different lobes that do the pumping. And that fits in the opposite bores. And I don't think that pin spot matters. Yep, got to put that spring in. So there's the spring. Goes right there. And this coupler goes down in here like this. Alright, so this cam plate, actually it does matter which way it goes. So there's a pin here, and it needs to be lined up directly with the keyway on the drive shaft. So I have the keyway facing up, basically facing towards me. So this pin needs to be up there too. So if I set this down just like that, as you can see there, it's facing down. The pin right above my finger lines up with the keyway right here by my thumb. So they're on this, both on the top side. And then this whole assembly here fits down in there, and it is keyed, so that little groove will line up with the pin. Just like so, just like that. And this thing can spin, but that's where we'll have a couple springs and whatnot will go there. Alright, so these are the springs and plungers that will sit. One right there, and the other one on the other side. Just like so. Is the governor linkage assembly, and it goes in here, and then this little ball socket there has to ride on this spill ring there. So there's a bolt here, and they both have new copper washers on them. So they've got little pins that will feed into the sides of this linkage. Just get those finger tight for now. I'm going to torque those later. For now, essentially that pushes that whole mechanism down. Alright, so this is our distributor head. We're going to pull the O-ring off. Put the new one on. So now we've got two springs that ride in these two holes. And the difficult part with this distributor head is it literally just puts spring tension down on one side. And so when you're trying to put the bolts on, you kind of like awkwardly getting it in there. So now there are these two springs right here that sit in these holes. And the only way to keep them in there is to put some grease in the hole to get it to stick. So this is probably one of the trickiest parts of the whole thing. I have to get these two springs in there without falling out. They land somewhere on that governor linkage. I have to get this pin and this pin in this hole and this hole, all while getting this main one in the middle. Okay, so I ended up assembling this distributor head while it was off. This shaft was really kind of tight to get in there, and I wasn't able to push it down, but I was able to get them all in here. The springs are still being held with grease, and I should be able to just like snake it under there. There is a spacer down there that's holding it. I can just get past that and then kind of twist it. Make sure I'm on the stud. There we go. That popped in. Alright, now, there we go. One of the bolts. That corner. And one of these four was holding a bracket. I think it was this one. Right here. Might have been this one. You can always put the bracket on later. I think I'm going to put it on this side. See, you can kind of see an outline of where it might have been here. It just goes right on the corner like this. Alright, on the back of the head here, we've got this head plug. Got a new O-ring on it. This is what we use the pipe wrench to get off. So that's as tight as I can do it by hand. We'll tighten that up a little bit more later. Got the delivery valves here, and they're all labeled based on the color. And this is A, B, C, and D. So, new crush washer goes down first. Then we've got the delivery valve itself. Goes down like that. Then there's a spring and a little seal, or a little O-ring, little metal ring. And that whole thing feeds right onto the delivery valve, and this is called the delivery valve holder. And so it threads straight down. Alright, get the right wrench, we'll get those torqued down. These old crush washers are junk. Probably could have done this earlier, but we're going to close up this timer piston. There's a washer, spring, then there's a new O-ring, another washer, just trust me, it's in there, and then this cap. Now we're going to install the fuel shutoff solenoid, but apparently the kick did not have an O-ring for it, so let's see what we got. That one's close. That one looks like it fits the best. We'll go with that one. Now we got the governor flyweights and the governor shaft to put in, so this essentially is already all assembled with the weights. And there is a washer and like a half moon spacer. Slide right in there. And this is the governor shaft. It's got a new O-ring on it. So this is reverse thread too. So I did not adjust this at all. I literally loosened it with the shaft. This nut, you can adjust it in and out. I'm just going to tighten it exactly how I took it out, and the governor should still be set exactly how it was. Alright, here's our housing cover. It's got a shaft here that feeds up through. This is the essentially the throttle shaft, I believe. There we go. Okay, and then there's a spring that will hook. And it's got to hook downward, like so. And then this shaft is our, I don't even know. I should know. New gasket for the cover. Does not want to fit in there very well. You know what, screw that. This one's fine. Yeah, I'm gonna use this one. Way better. Alright, so now we got a hook. Another little spring thing here. The other side of this spring on the cover. Just like that. So 3 of the 4 bolts are the original. I had to find another one for this one because when I was originally getting it off, it basically stripped right out. So I had to pound in a Torx bit and it basically changed the size completely. So found one that's the same exact threads and we're going to use that. And you know what? We're going to stick that one in the hidden spot underneath the springs for the throttle. So I think I have this backwards. I think this should be flipped the other way. So whatever. I'm going to have to do a bunch of taking off to get there, but oh well. Alright, so I'm in there. I'm pretty sure this linkage needs to go like this. So what cued me off that I was wrong is there's a little wear pattern right there. And that's where this rides. Well, that wear pattern would be perfect for where that spring would sit. And that was on this side. Well, it has to come from over here so that the spring on the top cover can actually grab that and pull. And it was in the wrong spot. So now we're looking good. Alright, now we got it right. Got it on the right side. So now our little spring and plunger deal. Right through that hole. And our spring will go just like that. That fits. Alright, I got it. It's hooked. Now, there we go. We'll get 3 of these bolts in. Then we got to remove the shaft here to put the 4th one in. This thing has to get lined up with the mark that I scribed. And hook both springs. One like so, one like so. Just like that. And this piece fits down between the springs, keeping them round and out there. So yeah, my scribe line's right here. I lined it up with right on that stud. Boom. Now let's hope I can get this shut-off solenoid in. Ooh. Good. Messing that up really got me out of whack on this, but I think we're gonna get there the bass-backwards way. And this goes in here. So I did not mess with the idle, the high idle, or the high throttle, or this screw at all. So it has a whole adjustment here. I loosened it here on the end, and I'm going to tighten it here on the end, which means that this nut does not move at all. There is a new O-ring on that shaft. Put this shut-off solenoid wire back on. Alright, we got it all back together. Everything's working. Let's throw this nut on here and make sure that it turns over freely. So now we'll see if this thing moves right. Good deal. Just like that. And there's kind of like a kunk, kunk, kunk. As it moves around that cam plate, each of the lobes is a slight, like, basically hurdle it has to overcome. And so it shouldn't be just smooth. But, yeah, that's exactly how it should feel. Get this back off and we'll get to putting it in. All right, let's get this pump in. Oh, don't tell me I got it on the first try. I think I did. There we go. Yeah, bingo. Huh, awesome. Pump is in. Got it tightened down. Put the injector back in. Put the glow plug back in. Got all this tightened down. Got the return line back on. It's all tight. Now it's time for the fuel lines. What is this? Blue and pink. Let's take this back off. Alright, so way down here in that kit, it came with these caps. And these caps are plastic screw-on caps to keep the lines clean, which is awesome. I really need to get a bunch of those different sizes and like a set of them so I could just use them for whatever I have, whatever I'm working on. Alright, so I'm going to leave these zip ties on these lines just as a marker for later, but I cut them shorter so that they won't be in the way of anything. Alright, bingo. Got all the lines in. Everything is installed and ready to rock and roll, start bleeding. But right here's the pump, right there, and the gear that it fits into is right down where my hand is. So I'm going to show you with the inspection camera. So right there, that nut is the nut that screws onto the injection pump. And then that big washer is what came off, and in there it attaches to the other gears which drive the pump. From what I've been told, and honestly it sounds exactly right, is that because that shaft is keyed onto the gear, there is no timing to set, assuming I had it set to top dead center. Now, even if I hadn't had it set to top dead center, that shaft can only literally go into that gear one way because it's a keyed shaft. So, I have not done anything with the engine, haven't moved it, haven't changed a single thing. So, it should be exactly where it was timing. I mean, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see if it barks right back off. I really think it's going to bark right back off and be good. But sometimes you just never know. So let's dive right into it. Let's get some fuel primed up to at least the pump, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to use the little electric clicky clack. I still have that inline right there, and we'll prime it up to the pump. It wasn't wanting to push through the pump to the injectors, but I was able to get it to do that once I cranked the engine over. So we'll get as much done by the battery and the electric clicky clack as we can. The starter's already potentially on its way out. I don't know. It was smoking the other day, so battery terminals are getting hot. But hopefully it'll last us through getting this baby started. Right down there where we were just looking, there's a cover, and I'm putting it on. And I don't know if you guys ever had that issue where you just can't get your hand in there to get it started because it keeps falling down. Here's a trick. So you take a little piece of rag, you put it in your socket or over your socket, and then you take and you push the bolt or nut into that, like that, and now it is literally tight enough to reach down in there and just barely try and get a thread or two started. And then, right when you pull it off, boom, not only does the socket come off, but you can grab your little piece of rag. That one was lucky. I've got my little starting switch literally set up to power the clicky clack. So that's that little electric fuel pump there. We're gonna open it up. Honestly, we're gonna start over here on the fuel pump. I'm sorry, the fuel filter. That's the fuel water separator. We're gonna loosen this one here, this line, and see if we can get fuel out right there. So if I pull this trigger, it will then power that electric fuel pump. Yep, so we're already getting fuel there. Now let's see if we get fuel right here. Yep. All right, we've got fuel there. Let's correct these injectors. The lines at the injector anyway. Now, I don't know if it's going to pump through the pump all the way up to the injector lines, to the injectors or not, but find out. My assumption is right now it just got finished filling the pump. So I think what we'll do, we'll leave these cracked and we'll crank on it on the engine and see what we find out. See what we have. And we'll leave the fuel clicky clack, we'll leave that off, because really I want it to pull fuel without that. We're gonna give it a crank, see if we can get some fuel. Here we go. I think maybe we should engage the electric clicky clack at the same time. Here we go. Oh, we got sparkage. Look right down there. And that solenoid is definitely not looking great. Grab this wire. Okay, something's definitely going on with that starter, so I'm going to dive into that, try and figure out what's going on. Might need a new starter solenoid, might be able to take it apart, clean it, put it back in. Also might have bad connections, don't know. So I'm going to tighten these lines up so we don't lose any kind of prime on whatever we might have gotten. And then we'll take that starter out. Alright, I got the lines off and marked. And then I got 2 of the 3 bolts out. One more bolt and the starter should come right out. And there's the starter. And it looks like we've got a gear reduction style starter, which are technically better. They make more power turning and they use less electricity to do it. It says Catron Electric Incorporated. Part is 18171, 12 volts. Noble, Illinois, USA. Noble, Illinois, huh? This looks like a remanufactured one because it looks like there's a decal behind it. So maybe that's a small shop in that town. Don't know, can't quite tell. But either way, I think what we're going to do is we're going to pop off this solenoid here and see what we see. There's our solenoid. "12-volt 1827. Solenoid sits like that, and then when it is powered, it sticks the Bendix out, like that. And then the Bendix is this gear mechanism, and then that will spin on the motor inside this gear reduction. This gear reduction is what I was talking about earlier. But one of the main things that wear out on starters is these starter solenoids. And so I'm debating on whether to crack it open, try and fix it, or just go buy one. So I don't know. Normally I always fix them, but I'm at a point now where I just want it to be done. So I might just go get one. The heck was that noise? Well, it does work. My only issue is, should I open it up and inspect it? I'm not one to usually just throw parts at stuff, but right now I think a solenoid wouldn't be too bad of a deal. So I'm going to run to the local electric motor repair shop and see if they've got a solenoid for one of these. I take the starter and this with me. So I went to the repair shop and he did not have one in stock. He's going to order one, should have it in a couple days. So I'm going to pull this apart and we're going to see if I can even get into it. Kind of looks like it's been glued closed, but if we can get into it, then maybe we can clean it, clean the contacts, clean the two posts. There we go. Oh, I'm wondering if these solenoids need to be desoldered before you can pull them apart, because that post is soldered and that post is soldered. You know what? Screw this. We're not going to mess with it. I am going to put it back together and we're going to put it back in and burn it up until it goes bad. And if it does go bad, we got a new one on the way. So let's do that. All right, we got the clicky clack running. Let's give it a crank. I got fuel in this cylinder and this cylinder. Trying to get fuel up to these two injectors. There we go, got fuel to this one. One more, come on old girl, you can start. Anytime now. There we go. Fuel down on this injector. Get that tight. Get that tight. All right. Come on, baby. Start for me. it runs. Man, that smokes a lot. I'm wondering a couple things. Is there just a ton of fuel in there that it has to burn out, which is a possibility? Or is the timing off? I think it's the timing. No, wait, we might be sucking air. Because there's fuel leaking right here. And fuel leaking here. I don't think these are tight enough. Well, that'll be good. That would be a good problem because too much air will cause an engine to smoke like that. The only other thing I haven't done anything with is the injectors, other than to pull them out and look at them. Maybe it's time they get pop tested. Let's see what happens now. I don't know, you're a smoky old girl. Okay, well, at this point, I think we might be dealing with a timing issue. We've got compression, so it will run. It just pours out smoke now. We're getting fuel through the pump. I don't think the pump is the issue, but it could be. I'm wondering if the little gear that the injection pump keys into might have skipped a tooth or jumped a tooth or moved over a tooth. Something about teeth, essentially. So the solution is to literally do what I didn't want to do, which is remove the hydraulic oil cooler and the radiator and the fan and get into the timing cover and verify that we're good there. If I can verify that we're good in the timing cover, then I don't know. Maybe the injection pump needs to actually go to the experts to know what they're talking about. But if we're a tooth off, it would run like it's running now. I did get all the injectors sealed and tight, and there's no fuel leaking out of those, so we don't have air coming in there. It's not leaking anywhere around the pump. So next up, we're going to tear off the coolers or the oil cooler and the radiator and get into the timing cover, and we'll find out. So that won't be tonight though, but it'll be soon for you. All right, let's jump right into getting the radiator drained so we can take it off. There's a drain on the back. Not sure if it works, but we'll find out. Well, that broke off. Okay, well. Alright, I gotta see if I can see that better from another angle. Alright, I want to make it so this thing doesn't fall on my head. So I've got these big zip ties. And we gotta get this 2x4 out of here so we can remove all that. There we go. All right, I've got a couple of drawers full of like caps, plugs, different things that I use for situations like this, and sometimes they work to actually stop the flow. I don't have like a JIC kit. I need to get one, but sometimes they stop the flow, sometimes they just keep dirt out. That one actually might stop the flow. I think it's actually threading on. That'd be kind of cool. All right, let's see. Maybe this one kind of looks right. That might be threading in there too. Cool. Well, that's one line. And there's another line right there. And once we get that off, we should be able to remove this whole oil cooler. That's a lot of oil. It came out quick. I'm actually kind of glad I had these plugs that actually threaded in, so it is stopping the flow. That's a good thing. I think that line might have literally drained everything out of the tank. Looks like it's literally connected right to the bottom of the tank. I wasn't even worried about that one. I was worried about the cooler, and I shouldn't have been. Should have been worried about this one. But glad I had these caps. Come on now. There we go. There's the hydraulic oil cooler. All right, so I have the bottom radiator hose connected. Trying to get at this drain port here. See if I can get it open. I don't think so. I think this is just going to turn into a messy one. Here goes the leaky. Although I am only splitting this pipe, we might not lose everything. Find out. I'm going to try and leave as much in the radiator as I can. Split it right there. Alright, so this is the cover that we removed to get the bolt to remove the injection pump. We're going to get the fan off. We're going to see if we can get this pulley off. And then try and get into that timing cover. Probably a good time to replace the belt, don't you think? The water pump feels nice. No growly. The bearings feel good. Don't think I needed to take that off. I will need to take that off. Gotta figure out what size socket that is. Basically, I want to get this cover from here, there, all the way over there off. And the only thing left in the way is this crank pulley. So I'm sure this nut is a metric equivalent of 1.5 inches. I have 1.5 inches here. I have other sockets at home, but it's just barely loose. So it should work. Guess we'll find out. Yep. There we go. Oh, wow. came right off. Probably be a good time to do that rear main. Alright, let's get this cover off. I think there's a bolt here and a bolt here that go up into it. Are those 12 mil? They are. Usually with covers like this, you have to fight it and beat it off, like literally, then you probably missed something. Try not to lose what bolt goes where because they're different lengths. Like a lot of different lengths. I think there's another bolt, 2 bolts here and here that go up. Yeah, those are long ones. So I took all the bolts out and I laid them out in exactly the order they go. Now we should be good. Well, I don't think there's a way that gear could have jumped a tooth. There's just no way that's a big old monster gear. I don't see that thing moving at all. So this gear here is what's connected to that injection pump. And it's not a small little baby gear, it's a pretty dang good size. The only mark I see on it is there's a C right on that little rib. Alright, see if we can get these lined up. Alright, I found our timing marks. They're behind these little like additional spacer rings. I'm not sure what they were, but so on this gear here, we've got 2 dots. The little one down there has 1 dot. This main center gear has 1 dot, 1 dot, 2 dots. And then this gear for the injection pump has 2 dashes, which basically means dots. So here's what has to happen. Everything lines up with this center crankshaft gear. Or that's actually not the crankshaft gear, that's probably the camshaft. And so it is our key, essentially. So one of the dots will line up between these 2 on this gear. One of the dots on here, one of these 2, will line up between the 2 dashes on that gear. And then the 2 dots on this middle gear will line up with the 1 dot on that center crankshaft gear. So we'll put the crank pulley back on and we'll turn it and basically try and see if everything is lined up the way it should be. All right, we're getting close. This might be the one that does it for us. Nope. All right, well, that dot meets up with those 2. That dot meets up with those 2. And those 2 dots meet up with that dot. So the engine is properly timed. So that leads me right back to the injection pump. And I wouldn't say I tore into this for nothing, because now I know. I didn't really want to get this far into the engine, but I guess now I kind of messed up the gasket for the timing cover. The rear main seal, I definitely think had at least a little bit of a leak. It's an NGK FB50, and then the other number is AH2021F. And this one has like a felt seal, kind of just like an oil wick right there on the outside. Looks like normal type of seal without that oil wick. Not sure what the necessary need for that is, but I will probably get an oil seal, maybe get a lower gasket. There's a gasket here, a gasket here, and then one all the way around. All right, so I've checked the timing now on this thing, and the timing gears are exactly where they should be. The injection pump itself is exactly where it was when I took it off. So the plan now is to bring in the professionals, area diesel service. So we're going to take the injection pump back out. We're going to take the injection pump and all 4 injectors to their shop, and we're going to let them figure out what's going on with this. They're going to go through the injection pump and pop test all the injectors, make sure they're operating correctly. Maybe they're stuck open and I just can't tell. I don't know. So I'm not going to show you the complete removal process again. You've already seen it. So I'll get that done and we'll head to their shop and see if we can get this thing all fixed up. All right, so we are here. So now I finally got the pump where it deserves to be.
All right, so what we think we found here?
He's having a problem with white smoke. Fuel in number 4, number 2.
All right, let's see what we've got.
Yeah, baby!